Hello, everyone. I am Sxcoal from Jingzhou Coal Port, and it's a real pleasure for me to be invited by Fenwei Energy to give you this report. Today, I will focus on Central China coal market and the trend in Jingzhou coal ports. And there are three contents: overview of Central China coal market, Central China Coal Market Survey, and the Jingzhou Coal Terminal Development Trend. First part, the overview. Speaking of the Central China Coal Market, I will start from Hubei, Hunan, and Jiangxi provinces. First of all, let's look at the overall production in the three provinces. Since 2015 till 2020, in the three provinces, the coal output decreased from 88.72 million tons to 13.74 million tons. The total reduction was about 75 million tons. It was 85% of decline. In Hunan, it has the largest slump by about 47 million tons. And for Hubei province, it has the greatest ratio of decline by 98%. Now let's look at coal consumption in the three provinces. According to the statistics, in the three provinces, from 2015 to 2019, coal consumption was basically stable. Since 2019, the accumulated consumption of the three provinces was 310 million tons. Less than 5 million by 1.6%. In Hubei province, it has seen 2 years of decline consecutively from 2015 to 2017, and for Hunan province, a decline in 3 years' time till 2019. It is only Jiangxi province that has maintained stability in its consumption in the 5 years' time. So after production and consumption, now let's look at the net coal inflows in the three provinces. By the output and consumption numbers, it's clear that the net coal inflows in the three provinces were rising up year after year. In 2015, the total net inflows was 260 million tons, and in 2019, it was 291 million tons. So the net inflow ratio increased by from 70% to 94% in those 5 years' time. And as to the net inflow ratio in the three provinces, they were different as well. In Hubei province, almost all of the coal needs to rely on the inflows from elsewhere. So those are statistics by the Statistics Bureau about those provinces, and you can check those numbers officially online. Now let's look at our own market survey into the Central China coal market. As required by certain provincial departments in Hubei province, we have consistent surveys into Hubei market for 3 years. And to get an idea about the potential of the Jingzhou market, we also work together with some riverside coal companies. So based on our market survey, I would love to present you our outcomes and findings. For Hunan and Jiangxi provinces, I will cover them very briefly, but my focus will be on Hubei province in the interest of time. And after all, we had the longest time of market survey into Hubei province. According to our market survey, we did a calculation, and such a calculation may differ from the statistics by the Statistics Bureau, so it's only for your reference. And in 2017, in the three provinces, the total coal consumption was 250 million, And as to the coal transport through water, the three provinces were about 30%, 29%, and 40% respectively. So Jiangxi province enjoys the highest ratio of transportation by water among the total transportation volume. Next, it comes to the focal point about Hubei province. Since 2017 till 2019, we have done a 3-year market survey in Hubei province covering over 2,500 enterprises. For different types of enterprises, their procurement channels, number, transportation method, and quality, we have very in-depth analysis and statistics. And according to the results, from 2016 till 2018, the coal consumption in Hubei provinces rose up gradually year by year from 84 million tons in 2016 to 94 million tons in 2018. So the total increase was 7.13 million tons. The increase ratio was 8.2%. Now let's look at different transportation ways in Hubei province. In 2018, the coal inflow relies on about 53% of railway, amounting to 50.11 million tons. That's an increase of 14.27% compared to 2017. Waterway take up 33.47%, an increase of 10.52%, and road has an annual inflows of 12.48 million tons in 2018, accounting for 13.27% of the total inflows, and that's a decrease of 14.5% compared to that of 2017. So by those statistics, in Hubei inflows, railways and waterways account for rising proportion, but as to road, it's trending downward. Next, we break it down into various industries in Hubei province to look at the coal consumption. In 2016 till 2018, in the 4 traditional industries, power, chemicals, building materials, and metallurgical industries, those 4 industries' total coal consumption have seen a gradual increase year by year, particularly power industry. It is starkly increasing. In 2018, the power industry coal consumption was 47 million tons, accounting for over 50%. So coal consumption in power industry in Hubei province accounted for almost half of the total in Hubei province. So by those data, we could prove that it's highly concentrated in coal consumption in Hubei province, particularly concentrated in the 4 pillar industries, led by power industry. Over 50% after all. In addition to the 4 pillar industries, coal consumption in other industries are declining year by year. With economic development and industrial transformation, the coal consumption in other industries might be replaced by the 4 pillar industries in the future. Meanwhile, we also look at the levels of coal consumption by different enterprises. And if you look at the table, in 2018, in Hubei province, among all the coal consumers, for those consuming over 10 million tons of coal in that year, there were 97 enterprises, accounting for 11.74% of the total coal consumers in Hubei province. But their consumption volume take up almost 95% of the total consumption volume, and over 88% of those enterprises consume less than 5 million tons. So their consumption take up only 5% of the total coal consumption in the entire province. So it's still highly concentrated in terms of the level of consumption. And with the help of those tables and charts, it is clear that starting from 2016 till 2018, there are some clear changes in terms of coal consumption in Hubei province. And to sum it up, first and foremost, the total coal consumption increased slightly year by year in the 3 years' time. Secondly, the coal consuming industry is becoming more and more concentrated. So the coal consumption is more concentrated in the traditional 4 industries, and the total number of consumers and the level of consumption have seen a sharp decline in other industries. Thirdly, we are seeing polarization of coal consuming among all the enterprises. So the small and medium-sized coal consumers are declining in number, but for the bigger consumers, they consume even more. And for the minority consumers, they consume less. But for those consumers that consume over 5 million tons per year, they are rising up year by year. So with this market survey into the 3 years' time, we have felt the pulse of coal consumption trend in Hubei province. And here are the findings. Firstly, we believe that the coal consumption in the province will continue to grow and is expected to peak before 2025. In this process, for all of those newly established, reconstructed, or expanded or planned coal projects, we have done an organization of all the information. It's still ongoing. So for the total consumption with the potential new consumption, we believe that it will add up to almost 30 million tons. Secondly, coal production will decline while consumption will increase. The number of coal-consuming enterprises will reduce while the total quantity of coal consumption will rise. After all, the production is going down, but by the contrast, consumption is going up. The total number of consumers is going down, but the total volume of consumption is shooting up. Thirdly, about the supplying provinces, I think there will be a big reform in terms of the supplying provinces and transportation. According to the statistics in Hubei province, in 2018, among the entire transportation, the seaborne transportation take up almost 34%, and railway take up 66%, and as to non-waterway transportation in Shanxi province, it takes up 23% of the total inflows in Hubei province, and Henan take up 4%, and for all of those other provinces, they take up the remaining 8%. With the Haoji Railway about to be open for operation, there may be different types of consumed coal, and the transportation landscape will be transformed as well. And according to the trend of coal development in Hubei province, added by Hunan and Jiangxi briefing, for the 3 provinces as a whole in central China, we get an idea about the consumption trend in central China coal market. Here they are. First, in the recent 5 years, in the 3 provinces, the cumulative withdrawn coal output was 70 million tons, leading to the net inflow into the 3 provinces increasing by 70 million tons, and this is going to be sustained. And due to that factor, in the next 5 years, we estimate that the net inflows in the 3 provinces will continue to increase by 10 million tons. Secondly, because of the economic development, coal consumption in the 3 provinces will be up, and the newly added coal consumption projects will consume more. In the next 5 years, it is expected that the total consumption in the 3 provinces will increase by 10 million tons per year. And in the next 5 years, for the central China region, for the planned or newly established power plants, we did a survey as well. According to our survey, Hubei, Hunan, and Jiangxi provinces in the next 5 years will see The total installed capacity of 17 million kilowatts of new power projects. If they were all put into operation, the total coal consumption will add up to 30 million tons of consumption. So that's a rough estimate about the thermal power plants yet to be in operation in the next 5 years. Speaking of the Central China coal market, the third finding is the coal transportation structure in the 3 provinces will be changed due to the new coal transportation channels such as the Haoji Railway and other relevant national policies, and the C2 river and road transportation proportion will maintain a downward trend, while that of railway and railway to river transportation will have an upward trend. According to our statistics, in 2020, the shipment of Haoji Railway was approaching 20 million tons. Hubei account for 24%, Hunan 27%, and Jiangxi 40%. In the 3 provinces, their proportion account for over 90% of the total shipment on Haoji Railway. In 2021, from January to May, the shipment in Haoji Railway was approaching 23 million tons, and the 3 provinces account for still over 90%. We estimate that by the end of 2021, the total shipment will be approaching 15 million tons on Haoji Railway. So, railway will play a bigger role in the coal inflows into the 3 provinces. And next, let's introduce more about the terminals relevant to Haoji Railway. Speaking of the Jingzhou coal terminal, it's located in Jingzhou City, and it is 10 kilometers distance to Jiangling County, and it's at the upstream of the Yangtze River Bridge, and it is located at the only conjunction point of Haoji Railway and Yangtze River. It enjoys the Yangtze River advantages on the upstream. There are many coal mines, and at the downstream is connecting with the 3 consumption provinces. This terminal is required to be developed with the other 5 projects by the NDRC, and this terminal has the largest and heaviest investment in Central China. It's going to be the biggest transaction platform and the transfer platform of coal. For the Jingzhou coal terminal project, there are 2 phases with a total investment of 7 billion yuan, taking a shoreline of 17,000 meters. The total handling capacity is about 65 million tons, and for iron and ore, 50 million tons. Static storage capacity, 5 billion tons, and the first phase has been put into operation. It has an investment of 3.8 billion yuan for 1 phase, and since in Jiangling terminal, we have equipped it with some other systems, so for 1 single line, it can carry about 8,000 tons per hour. Yards, we have prepared 13 different yards. So for first phase, the static storage capacity will be about 3 million tons. Meanwhile, we are planning the preliminary stage of phase 2. The total estimated investment will be 3.2 billion yuan for phase 2. And the handling capacity will be about 45 million tons for phase 2. Static storage capacity will be 2 million tons for phase 2. Another new port I have to mention is about its cost. Speaking of any new terminal, so here is about the indicators. Now let's look at the railway cost. The first spot is Jingminbei and others like Wushenqi. So Wushenqi and Jingbianbei are the main starting departure stations. In Jingbianbei, leading to Jingzhou coal terminal, the railway freight is about 205 RMB yuan. So here you can see the prices at different stations. Now on the Haoji Railway, the charging principle is till Jiangling, it's about 0.2024 RMB yuan per kilometer. If it leads to Pingtian, the tariff is 0.184 RMB yuan per ton per kilometer. And if it leads to Xingyuxi, the charge is 0.1748 RMB yuan per ton per kilometer. So you can see that the freight is declining with the distances going on. And in this model, the longer the distance, the lower the price will be. Now let's look at the Jingzhou coal terminal's waterway distance and freight. The coal terminal is located around the Jingjiang River segment. And as to the Yangtze River and Xiangjiang River, Ganjiang River, and Hanjiang rivers, they're all connected with this coal terminal, so it has a very good transportation position, and it leads to most of the ports in the surroundings. If we look at the distances to those ports, basically the maximum distance will take about 7 days of transportation. Most of them would accomplish the task within 3 to 5 days of waterway transportation. So if we judge by the cost, to most of the ports, the cost is about 19 RMB yuan per ton. So right next to railway and waterway cost, now let's compare the different freights and the transportation cost. For example, the railway to riverway and the seaborne to riverway. We choose Jiangxi Jiujiang to be a comparison terminal because, after all, Jiujiang City is a must-go point for the ocean to river transported coal, and Jiangxi province is within our span. So by this comparison, in West Inner Mongolia, through different transport modes to arrive at Jiangxi Jiujiang City, for example, through the sea to riverway, the cost is 277 RMB yuan. Through Haoji Railway to the Jingzhou Coal Terminal riverway, the total cost is going to be about 274. So the second pathway is more advantageous. As to the freights through different modes from North Shanxi to Jiangxi, the first choice will cost 299 RMB yuan, but through the Haoji Railway and the combination of railway and riverway, the cost will be 248 RMB yuan. So still, the Jingzhou Coal Terminal has a cost advantage. But of course, such a comparison doesn't consider the coal mine's actual geographical location. If we consider the dedicated rail line cost and the transfer cost of the coal mines, there may be some difference. So this table is just for your reference. And based on our rough estimate, for those different transportation modes, the overall cost will be in the middle of the two choices. In reality, we also compare the actual cost. I didn't do this statistics this year, but in 2020, I did a monthly comparison. For example, 1,500 cal of coal that arrives at Jiujiang City of Jiangxi Province through different modes, I did a comparison. And judging by the tables, in 2020 alone, from January till September, the cost relying on the the ocean to river is lower than through the transfer method. And starting from October 2020, the cost of the transfer method is more having an upper hand compared to the sea to river pathway. This slide is about the costs for coal delivered via northern ports to Jiangxi in 2018 and 2019 by all the months. And by the tables, we can see that for the sea to river coal arriving at Zhejiang, the average price is about 723 RMB yuan. In 2019, it was 657 RMB yuan. And the average price in the first 9 months is 609 RMB yuan for the first choice. And for the transfer method, the average price for the first 10 months is 634 RMB yuan in 2019. So in 2020, it is a little bit higher. The Jingzhou coal terminal is put into trial operation since January 2021. By the end of October, the transferred coal through this terminal reached about 4.3 million tons. And as to the radiated market of this terminal, we did a rough calculation, and Hubei accounts for the largest proportion. Among all of those markets covered by the terminal, Hubei accounts for 35%, Hunan 24%, Jiangxi 18%. In addition to traditional 3 provinces, Jingzhou terminal also spans over Chongqing, Jiangsu, Anhui, Zhejiang provinces, accounting for 10% of Chongqing, 7% of Zhejiang, 4% of Anhui, and 1% for Zhejiang. Chongqing accounts for 10%. It's beyond our expectation. Jiangsu approaches 7%, Zhejiang 1%. Those percentages were also out of our expectation. So in the construction phase of the terminal, we have always been doing the market survey. So this is about the coal market forecast. And there are 4 parts. Firstly, the 3-kilometer belt conveying volume out of the terminal surpasses 10 million tons. For now, Hubei Jingzhou City is taking this terminal as a radius center to build an industrial park for coal and power. Now, many coal consumers and power plants are being constructed, and there are many other businesses trying to settle down in the park. We estimate that the 3-kilometer coal consumption will be over 10 million tons. Secondly, taking the terminal as the center, over 1 million tons of coal to be shipped out by truck to users within 100-kilometer distance around the terminal. Third, the main shipment will be through railway to waterway, and the barge shipments is to reach 30 to 50 million tons, mainly Hubei, Hunan, Jiangxi, and Anhui, Chongqing, Jiangsu provinces. Fourthly, after the operation of phase 2, there will be more transportation ways, that is railway to terminal, and we estimate it to reach about 45 tons of shipment. So with the transformation of the transportation structure, the transportation ecology will be improved in general. And this is all I want to share with you. Thank you for your listening. And also we welcome you to visit us in our terminal and in Hubei province. Thank you again.